subscribe to the channel. Chapter 1, The Marvelous City, Introduction to Contrasts. Rio de Janeiro, the marvelous city. But what does that really mean? I'm going to tell you a story about one of the most contradictory cities in the world. A place where paradise and hell coexist on the same corner, where the most stunning beauty shares space with the harshest reality. Imagine a city with 6.7 million inhabitants. Now imagine that 1.4 million of these people, almost 22% of the population, live in favelas. Communities without adequate sanitation, without infrastructure, often without security. And these favelas? They're just meters away from the most coveted beaches on the planet. Rio has 160 beaches. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It receives more than 2 million tourists per year who come in search of Christ the Redeemer, Sugarloaf Mountain, Carnival, Copacabana, and Ipanema beaches. But this same city registers thousands of robberies per month and lives with more than 1,000 favelas spread throughout the territory. How does this work? How can a city be so beautiful and so violent at the same time? How does the Carioca manage to keep a smile on their face and dance at Carnival while facing such a heavy reality? The income contrast in Rio can reach 50 times the difference. You have penthouse apartments in the South Zone worth millions of reais, with ocean views, pools on the balcony, and across the street, literally going up the hill, entire families surviving on less than minimum wage. But it's not just about money. It's about culture, identity, resistance. Rio is samba that was born in the favelas and became world heritage. It's funk that bothers the elite but dominates the radios. It's bossa nova that emerged from a mixture of all this. It's caipirinha on the beach, it's soccer on the sand, it's swagger, it's the Brazilian way, it's human warmth. In the next chapters of this series, I'm going to show you each face of this complex city. We'll explore the natural beauties that make Rio one of the most privileged places in the world. We'll dive into carnival culture, understand how it was born, and what it represents. We'll go up the hill and see the reality of the favelas from the inside. We'll talk about crime, yes, because we can't ignore it. And we'll also talk about the famous Carioca beauty, which goes far beyond physical appearance. But most important of all, we'll understand how the Carioca resists, how they find joy in the midst of chaos, how they transform pain into art, into music, into dance, how they wake up every day and choose to believe that Rio can be better. Because Rio de Janeiro isn't just a city. It's a feeling. It's a living contradiction. It's a place that embraces you and scares you at the same time. It's love and hate coexisting in the same heartbeat. Get ready to see the real Rio. Not the Rio of postcards, not the Rio of soap operas. The real Rio with its scars and its achievements, its tears and its smiles. In the next chapter, we'll start with what Rio has best, its incomparable natural wonders. We'll understand why this city earned the title of marvelous and why, even with all the problems, it continues to be one of the most desired places on the planet. See you there. Each of the famous, of the cool people, of the sunset with applause at our Arpoador. Each lifeguard station has its tribe. Station 9 is for the hip crowd, Station 8 is for artists, Station 7 is for the LGBTQIA+ community. Leblon, the most expensive beach in Brazil per square meter. Full of outdoor gyms, personal trainers, fitness women, purebred dogs. It's another level of ostentation, but the beach is public. At least in that there's still democracy. And Barra de Tijuca? 18 kilometers long. It's Rio's longest beach. It seems endless. Strong waves, less movement, more families. In total, there are more than 100 kilometers of coastline just in the city of Rio. 100 kilometers. Of sea, sand, salt water, cold coconut, global biscuits, mate with lemon. But Rio isn't just sea. It's forest too. Tijuca Forest is the largest replanted urban forest in the world. Urban, okay? Right in the middle of the city. It's 3,200 hectares of Atlantic forest. It was devastated in the 19th century because of coffee, and then Emperor Dom Pedro II ordered reforestation. Today it has waterfalls, trails, viewpoints, sloths, toucans, monkeys. It's raw nature 20 minutes from downtown. And there's Rodrigo de Freitas Lagoon, with its calm waters surrounded by buildings. There's the Botanical Garden, with more than 6,500 plant species. There's Lage Park, with that historic mansion and view of Christ. There's Pedra de Gavia, Pedra Bonita, Dois Irmãos Hill. 40% of Rio's territory is covered by vegetation. It's a city literally embraced by the forest. Mountains on one side, sea on the other, forest in between. It's a geographical privilege that very few cities in the world have. And the sunset? Man, the Carioca sunset is movie stuff. Whether at Arpoador, where people applaud when the sun sets. Whether at Alto de Boa Vista, with a 360-degree panoramic view. Whether at Pedra do Telegrafo, with that fake cliff photo that looks beautiful. Rio's sky paints orange, pink, purple, red. It's natural watercolor every single day. It's hard not to fall in love. Even knowing all the problems, when you see this combination of sea, mountain, and forest, you understand why there are people who can never leave. Rio traps you with its beauty. But here comes the question that won't shut up. If Rio is so beautiful, if nature was so generous with this city, why do so many people live in precarious conditions just meters from this paradise? Why doesn't all this beauty translate into quality of life for everyone? Why are there favelas stuck on the hill with the most privileged view in the city, but without running water, without treated sewage, without adequate garbage collection? How can a city so rich in nature be so poor in wealth distribution? In the next chapter, we begin to understand these contrasts. We'll talk about Carioca joy, about carnival, about the culture that was born precisely in the communities. We'll see how the people here transform pain into celebration. See you soon. Chapter 3. The Other Side, Favelas and Inequality. Now, let's talk about what many people prefer not to see, Rio de Janeiro's favelas. But first of all, I need to make one thing clear. Favela is not synonymous with crime. Favela is housing, it's community, it's culture, it's resistance. Yes, there's violence, there's trafficking, there are militias. But there are also working people, families, children going to school, dreams, life. The history of Rio's favelas begins in the late 19th century. When the soldiers who returned from a Canudos war didn't receive the houses the government had promised, they occupied Providencia Hill, downtown. They called that hill favela because of a hill that had this name in Canudos. And the name stuck. Then came other occupations. Newly freed blacks from slavery who had nowhere to live. Migrants from the northeast fleeing drought. Poor workers expelled from downtown when the city modernization projects began. Everyone who was too poor to pay rent went up the hill and built their shack. Today, Rio has more than 1,000 favelas. More than 1,000. And 1.4 million people live in them. That's almost a quarter of the city's population. To give you an idea of the contrast, there are favelas in the South Zone like Rocinha and Vidigal that are literally next to apartments that cost millions of reais. The view is the same. The difference is that on one side there's a pool, doorman, 24-hour security. On the other side there's no water, no sewage, no pavement. Inequality in Rio is visible. You don't need statistics, just look out the window. Just take the subway from Leblon to Pavuna. In 40 minutes you cross several different Rios de Janeiro. Each with its reality, its economy, its life expectancy. A resident of Gavia, an upscale neighborhood in the South Zone, lives an average of 80 years. A resident of Complexo do Alameo lives an average of 63 years. That's 17 years difference in the same city. This isn't chance, it's structure. It's lack of sanitation, it's lack of quality health clinics, it's police violence, it's stray bullets, it's constant stress. But favela isn't just deprivation. It's also power. It's culture, it's creativity, it's improvisation. Carioca funk was born in the favelas. The pasinho, that dance that went viral worldwide, came from the dances. Artists, soccer players, entrepreneurs, many talented people came from communities. Life in the favela has its codes, its rules, its own dynamics. There's local commerce, there's the neighborhood where everyone knows everyone, there's the solidarity that arises from necessity. When there's no water, residents help each other. When there's a police operation, everyone protects each other. It's community in the real sense of the word. But there's also the heavy side. There are children who grow up hearing gunshots. There are mothers who won't let their children play in the street because it's dangerous. There are workers who leave at dawn to take 3 buses and get to work in the South Zone. There are boys who are recruited by trafficking because they don't see any other survival option. And there's the police. The relationship between police and favela in Rio is one of war. It's operations with armored vehicles, helicopters, rifles. It's young black men being searched just because they're walking on the street. It's violent approach, it's distrust on both sides. Rio is the state that kills the most in Brazil, and most of these deaths happen in favelas. But you know what's most revolting? The naturalization. We see news of a police operation that kills 20, 30 people in one day, and it becomes routine. Oh, it was in Alameo, it was in Jacarezinho, it was in Mare. as if the lives of those who lived there were worth less. As if it were normal for children not to be able to go to school because there's shooting. Rio's cruelest contrast isn't between beauty and ugliness. It's between humanity and dehumanization. It's having a city where, in some neighborhoods, children grow up with English classes, swimming, piano. And in others, they grow up with curfews, war trauma, early morning. And the worst part, this isn't an accident. It's a project. It's more than 500 years of history of a country that was built on exploitation, slavery, exclusion. Favelas didn't come out of nowhere. They're the consequence of political, economic, social choices. In the next chapter, we'll dive even deeper into this reality. We'll talk about urban violence, factions, militias, the war that happens every day on Rio's streets. It's going to be heavy, but it's necessary. Because we can't talk about the marvelous city without talking about the city that bleeds. See you there. Chapter 4. Urban Violence, the Dangerous Face. Let's talk now about what's scary. About what makes tourists afraid to come to Rio. About what makes cariocas develop a sixth sense to survive. Let's talk about violence. Rio de Janeiro has one of the highest homicide rates among Brazilian capitals. In 2023, there were more than 3,000 violent deaths. 3,000. That's an average of 8 people murdered per day. Every day. Non-stop. And it's not just homicide. There are 150 car thefts per day. There are 200 cell phone robberies per day. There are bus robberies, pedestrian robberies, business robberies. It's express kidnapping, it's beach raids, it's robbery at traffic lights. Cariocas have developed a necessary paranoia. We learn from an early age, don't walk with your phone in your hand, don't wear gold chains, always look to the side, avoid certain places after certain hours. But violence in Rio isn't random. It has geography, it has an address, it has color. Most violent deaths happen in favelas and peripheries. And most victims are young, black, poor. Between 15 and 29 years old, the main cause of death for black men in Rio is homicide. Not disease, not accident. It's bullets. And who shoots? There are 3 forces that dominate the territories: drug trafficking factions, militias, and the police. Let's start with the factions. The 3 main ones are Comando Vermelho, Terceiro Comando Puro, and Amigos dos Amigos. Comando Vermelho was born in the 70s, inside the prison system, when political prisoners from the dictatorship lived with common prisoners. From there came an organization that today dominates hundreds of favelas, moves millions with drug and weapons trafficking, and functions almost like a parallel state. In areas controlled by trafficking, the faction sets the rules. It decides who can enter, who can leave, who can live, who has to leave. It resolves conflicts between residents. It's the one that, in many cases, offers the only job available for the 14-year-old boy who needs to help at home. And there are the militias, which started as extermination groups formed by police officers, firefighters, security guards, and which today dominate more territories in Rio than trafficking itself. Militias charge security fees, control alternative transportation, gas, pirate cable TV, internet. It's corporate crime, organized crime with a business license, and often with the connivance of public authorities. And there's the police, which should protect, but which has become part of the problem. Rio has the most lethal police in Brazil. In 2022, there were more than 1,300 deaths in police intervention. 1,300. The official excuse is always confrontation, exchange of fire, resistance followed by death. But investigations show executions, crime scene alteration, planting of weapons and drugs. The Supreme Federal Court had to intervene and prohibit police operations in favelas during the pandemic, except in extreme cases. You know why? Because too many people were dying. Children, innocent people, workers coming back from work. Stray bullets that are actually found bullets. Found in the body of someone who had nothing to do with it. There are cases of 8-year-old boys killed inside their homes. There are cases of recycling collectors mistaken for criminals. There are cases of musicians riddled with bullets inside their car because they looked suspicious. And the word suspicious in Rio has color. It's black, it's poor, it's from the favela. This urban war affects everyone, but it doesn't affect everyone equally. In the South Zone, violence is the sporadic robbery, the beach raid once in a while, the stolen car. In the favelas, violence is daily. It's waking up to gunshots. It's children not going to school. It's ambulances that don't enter. It's mothers burying children. And what do public authorities do? Repression, police operation, armored vehicle, helicopter, sniper. As if it were war. But war presupposes two armies. Here it's the state killing civilian population. It's disproportionate force, it's systematic human rights violation. There was the Jacarezinho massacre in 2021, 28 killed in a police operation, the deadliest in Rio's history. There was the operation in Vila Cruzeiro in 2022, more than 20 dead. And the official response is always the same. A good criminal is a dead criminal. We have to end these thugs. Police that shoots up doesn't defend law-abiding citizens. But what about human rights? And due legal process? And the presumption of innocence? Everything thrown away in the name of a war on drugs that only kills the poor. Because let's be honest, Rio's trafficking doesn't work without the elite that consumes, without the weapons that come from outside, without the corruption that allows it. The cocaine that arrives in Rocinha ends up at South Zone parties. The rifle that's in the hands of the trafficking soldier was diverted from a legal store or entered the country illegally. Trafficking money is laundered in shell companies, in contracts with public authorities, in bribes to politicians. It's a system. And in this system, who dies is always the same: the black, the poor, the favela resident. Meanwhile, the marvelous city remains marvelous for postcards and for tourists who don't leave the waterfront. But not everything is despair. In the next chapter, we'll change the tone a bit. We'll talk about karaoke beauty, beach culture, body, sensuality that Rio exports to the world. And we'll understand how this is also part of this complex puzzle that is Rio de Janeiro. Take a deep breath and come with me to the next chapter. Chapter 5, Resistance and Hope, Social Projects. After talking so much about violence, inequality, and problems, it's time to talk about hope. Because in the midst of chaos, there are people making a difference. There are social projects transforming lives. There's resistance, there's struggle, there are people who don't give up. Rio's favelas are full of initiatives that will never appear on the national news, but that save lives every day. They're NGOs, collectives, community projects, people who decided they wouldn't wait for the government to solve things. I'll give you some real examples. There's the Central Única das Favelas, CUFA, which was born in 1998 and today operates throughout Brazil. It started as a cultural movement, using hip-hop, basketball, and education to get young people out of crime. Today it offers vocational courses, access to technology, entrepreneurship. It has already impacted the lives of millions of people. There's Afro-Reggae, which emerged after the Rio de Janeiro massacre in 1993, when 21 residents were executed by police. Afro-Reggae uses music, culture, and art to offer an alternative to trafficking. There's a band, there's a music school, there are theater courses, audio-visual, circus. And it works. There are former trafficking members who are now professional musicians, who travel the world, who teach. There's the Fight for Peace project, which uses boxing and martial arts to work on discipline, respect, self-esteem with at-risk youth. It started in Complexo de Mer and is now an international reference in social transformation methodology through sports. There are community libraries like the Rocinha Park Library and dozens of others spread throughout the favelas. Places where children can go after class, borrow books, use computers, do homework in a safe environment. It seems like little, but for those who live in a one-room shack with 6 people, having a quiet place to study is revolutionary. There are community pre-university courses. Volunteer teachers who give up their Saturdays to teach for free to those who can't afford to pay for private prep courses. And it works. There are favela residents entering medicine, law, engineering at the best universities in the country. There's Reeds de Mer, which does a bit of everything: education, culture, food security, territorial development. During the pandemic, when the state abandoned the favelas, it was Reeds de Mer that distributed food baskets, masks, alcohol gel. It was the community taking care of the community. There are mothers who lost children to violence and created NGOs to help other mothers going through the same thing. There are ex-convicts who set up sewing cooperatives to give opportunities to those leaving the prison system. There are graffiti artists who give urban art workshops to teenagers. There are DJs who teach music production. There are chefs who offer gastronomy courses. And there are stories of overcoming that are moving. The boy who was born in the favela, saw a friend die, almost joined trafficking, but found a social project, discovered talent, studied, graduated, came back to the community as a teacher. The girl who became a mother at 15, dropped out of school but managed to return through a youth and adult education program, is now in college studying pedagogy. These are real stories. It's not a movie, it's not an exception. It's real people fighting every day against a system that wasn't made for them to win. and winning anyway. But let's be honest, social projects shouldn't exist. Because social projects are civil society doing what the state should do. It's patching holes, it's putting out fires, it's surviving. The ideal would be to have quality public schools, working health clinics, basic sanitation, security, employment opportunities. Then there wouldn't be a need for NGOs, volunteers, crowdfunding. But while the state fails and will continue to fail, these projects are essential. They're the difference between a boy joining trafficking at 12 years old or discovering he's good at math. They're the difference between a girl prostituting herself to help at home or learning a profession. They're literally the difference between life and death. And the most beautiful part? Most of these projects were created by people from the favela itself. It's not foreigners from international NGOs arriving to save. It's the resident who knows the reality, who felt it firsthand, who decided to do things differently. It's power, it's protagonism, it's proof that favela residents don't need a savior. They need opportunity, resources, respect. There are business people who could be making money but prefer to invest time in the community. There are famous artists who return to the favela where they were born and set up institutes. There are soccer players who build courts, who pay for scholarships. There are good people doing good things. And when you see a child from a favela smiling, playing, dreaming, despite everything, despite the shooting, lack of water, precarious school, hunger, you understand the strength of these people. You understand that resilience isn't romanticization of suffering. It's real resistance. It's not accepting that it has to be this way. It's fighting for another future. In the next and final chapter, we close this series. We'll put together everything that was said: beauty, violence, culture, inequality, resistance. We'll talk about what makes Rio, this city, so contradictory, so loved and hated at the same time. We'll talk about what it really means to be carioca. See you in the final chapter. Chapter 6, Rio de Janeiro, the city that never surrenders. We've reached the last chapter. And after everything we've talked about, the question that remains is, after all, what is Rio de Janeiro? Is it the marvelous city of postcards or the violent city of news reports? Is it tropical paradise or urban hell? Is it samba and joy or shooting and blood? The answer is, it's all of this together. And it's precisely this contradiction that makes Rio unique in the world. There's no other city on the planet with this specific combination. Absurd natural beauty coexisting with brutal inequality. Contagious joy mixed with daily violence. Rich culture emerging from pain and resistance. Paradisiacal beaches next to favelas without basic structure. It's a city that doesn't make sense. That shouldn't work. But it works. In its own way, crooked, improvised, but it works. And you know why? Because of the carioca. The carioca is this human being who wakes up every day, sees the heavy reality ahead, and still chooses to smile. Who takes 3 buses to get to work, earns peanuts, but on the weekend is at the beach playing foot volley. Who loses a child to violence and at carnival goes down the hill to samba at the avenue. Who complains about everything but can't leave. There's a phrase that sums it up: cariocas never give up. And it's true. It's a collective stubbornness, a refusal to accept that life has to be just survival. Cariocas transform precariousness into creativity. Transform pain into funk. Transform lack into improvisation. Transform oppression into dance moves. This isn't romanticization. It's not pretending everything's okay when it's not. It's recognizing that there's a strength, a cultural resistance, an ability to find joy even when everything conspires against it. Rio invented samba, invented bossa nova, invented carioca funk, invented the string bikini, invented global biscuits and mate with lemon, invented ways of living that all of Brazil copied, exported culture, music, fashion, slang, way of being. But Rio is also abandonment by public authorities. It's a project to exterminate black youth. It's real estate speculation expelling the poor. It's favela removal to build Olympic works that led to nothing. It's unfulfilled promise, it's diverted funds, it's corrupt politicians. Rio is Marielle Franco, a favela councilwoman who fought for human rights and was assassinated in 2018 in a political crime that to this day hasn't been completely solved. But Rio is also the thousands of people who took to the streets shouting, "Marielle present," proving that the seed planted doesn't die. Rio is the boy who dies at 16 in a police operation. But it's also the boy who at 16 enters university through quotas. It's both at the same time. It's tragedy and hope sharing a zip code. So what's Rio's future? Look, I wish I could give you an optimistic answer. Say it will get better, that inequality will decrease, that violence will end. But that would be a lie. The truth is there's no easy solution. It's centuries of unequal structure, decades of institutionalized violence, generations of abandonment. But there are paths. Real investment in quality public education. Basic sanitation in favelas. Public health that works. Decent jobs. End of the war on drugs that only kills the poor. Police demilitarization. Land regularization. Popular participation in decisions. Respect for human rights. These are structural changes that depend on political will. And while this will doesn't come from above, it comes from below. From social movements, from collectives, from mothers who don't shut up, from young people who occupy space, from artists who denounce, from workers who organize. Rio will continue to be contradictory. It will continue to be beautiful and violent, joyful and suffering, welcoming and excluding. But as long as there are karaokas resisting, favelas creating culture, social projects saving lives, people who refuse to accept that it has to be this way, there will be hope. And in the end, Rio isn't just a city. It's a feeling. It's belonging. It's identity. Those who are born here or who choose to live here know Rio gets in your veins, becomes part of you, forever. You can leave, live in another country, spend decades away. But when you step on the sand of Copacabana again, when you see Christ lit up at night, when you hear the first chord of a samba, when you smell the ocean mixed with the smell of fried food, you'll know you never left. Rio never let you go. Because this imperfect, unequal, violent, but absurdly alive city has a unique power. It marks you. It transforms you. It teaches you to resist with joy, to find beauty in chaos, to never give up. This was our journey through Rio de Janeiro's contrasts. I hope you understood a bit more about this complex city, that you saw beyond stereotypes, beyond postcards, beyond violence headlines. Rio is more. Always was, always will be. And as the karaoke would say, keep the party going. Thanks for getting here. If you like this series, share it with someone who needs to know the real Rio. And if you're karaoke, leave your comment telling your story, your neighborhood, your Rio. See you next time, and may Rio continue to be this city that never surrenders.